Welcome. Thanks for having me, and may the blessings of God fall on us like petals of flowers that dissolve in our heads, just making sure that not just our brain is active, but our feelings are active as well. Because we think we learn with our brain, but as a matter of fact, most of us just learn from our feelings, from our emotions. So that's why, and this topic was interesting because it's been like almost 3 years that I don't touch it. But there was one day in the Portuguese meeting here that one of our friends were late. So I jumped in, and the first one that I saw was this one. So I said, okay, I can do this one. And all of a sudden it turned out to be great. Not as the first time. So we decided to proceed this one and go a little further on it. Well, I don't think that there is a human being that walk on planet Earth that cannot say that don't have fear. Fear is something that it's all around us, and it's a feeling that, if you understand, is very helpful, because it's kind of a break. Otherwise, you go too far, and you can put your life in risk. If you're talking about physical exercises, or doing paragliding, whatever sport that you like to do it, if you don't have fear, you go too far. And you injure yourself, and maybe you can just discarnate just because of lack of fear. Or a lot of confidence, which is the opposite. So today we're going to talk about some aspects of fear that are kind of, scary, like this guy here. So let's start. What is fear? Normally when we feel fear, we feel like this. That way we wrap around, we cannot move. That is like heart pumping, a lot of physical symptoms in our body. Feeling induced by perceived danger or threat. And when that happens, our body responds. Causes a change in the metabolic and organ functions, and ultimately a change in behavior, such as fleeing, hiding, or freezing. Well, yesterday we were doing the fraternal counseling here, and the lecture that I read yesterday was about the fact that we are responsible for our health in a different way that we understand. We are not responsible for our health just by taking medicine. We are responsible in a level that we create our diseases. So every time we feel something, every time we are touched by any emotion, our body produces some kind of chemical reaction. Fear is adrenaline. So if you are in fear every single day, you produce a little bit of adrenaline that keeps growing and stocking inside of you, up to a point that you have so much adrenaline in your body, your body cannot deal with. So you are creating a kind of an overdose. And this overdose will charge you in some organ of your body. That happens to fear, that happens to anger, that happens to bitterness, that happens to not forgiving, that happens to so many feelings that we have. But fear will really gonna affect you right off the bat. If you are scared, it seems that you cannot move. It seems that you are tied up. You need to hide because you don't have response for that. You really drain your power. And irrational fear is called phobia. So if you don't like too much, that's people that don't like, most of the ladies don't like cockroaches. But the ones that like, it's not a roach, it's a dinosaur. And they flee. It's not a chicken, it's a pterodactylus. And they flee. And this is phobia. This is something that is bigger than just having fear and has to be understood in a different way. But fear for us It's a survival instinct. It's a natural reaction of the body facing a real or imaginary threat. When you think about our brain and the way that our brain was wired by the Lord, it's mostly by searching elements that can cause some harm. Since the prehistoric era, you go out of the cave not searching for a flower, searching for a dinosaur that can eat you. So mainly we search for harmful things around ourselves, harmful people, harmful situations, and sometimes they're not bad. It's just the way that we understand that. But the response in the body, feeling fear of something, just paralyzes. We cannot move, we cannot keep going. And that's a problem. That's a problem that we need to deal with. Our main fear, the main fear of the human being, according to the psychologists, is not being enough and not being loved. And in order to don't have this fear or to feel loved and to be enough, we do a lot of things that we shouldn't. And that will cause a secondary fear, because if you do something that you know that you shouldn't be doing, like join this group because they are the good ones and they are accepted by society that you live in, and in order to join this group, you do something that you don't agree with. But in order to be with this group, you need to do that. See the fraternities on university. In order to be accepted by a fraternity, how many things you do that you really don't like to do it? But you want to be part of something that is greater than you. You want to be accepted. You don't want to live in fear of being nobody because nobody accepts you because you don't belong to something bigger. So the very first thing is understand who we are. And that we are enough. Enough for ourselves. And then we can be ourselves to everybody else, instead of trying to be something that we are not, and live in constant fear to be unraveled, to be, pointed as a fake person. And this is a great fear that we have. Psychic elements that populate the consciousness due to the lack of security and internal balance. If you don't know who you are, if you don't know what is the right answer to the question that is popping in front of you, mostly you're going to say something, but you're going to be like, wow, did I say it right? Was that the answer that such and such expect you here? So this is living in fear. Not in life-threatening fear, but this is living in fear, nonetheless. It's a feeling generated from the lack of thought surveillance. Because if you analyze your thoughts, if you filter your thoughts, if you don't just let it go, then you can debate. Is that right? Or is that just a perception that I have? Because we have so many perceptions that are not right. Maybe somebody's looking at me with an angry face, and my perception is that, maybe I'm not giving a great speech because everybody's like... And maybe you're just tired. But you're listening, and this is nice for you to hear. So before start analyzing people without grabbing information, extra information, start analyzing your thoughts. Why this thought came to me? What that means? Is that right? Or is it just a figment of my imagination? It's just a thought that I have. It's just my understanding of the situation. Maybe I can be wrong. And that will release a little bit the tight cords that we have around ourselves, the tight ropes. Like sometimes we feel like a block. Sometimes we feel like we cannot move anyways. Fear can be presented in the form of jealousy, sickly son of emotional insecurity. When you're jealous about somebody, what are you jealous about? For real. What is your jealousy? Are you jealous about somebody? Or are you jealous because you don't have what somebody has? And why do you need to have something that somebody has? Why do you really need that? We used to say that our neighbor's grass is always greener than ours. Have you ever wake up at 1 a.m. to see he's painting the grass green? Because maybe that's the case. We don't know. We just assume so many things that maybe are not true. But we keep going, and we keep going. And we keep piling up a structure that is not based in real facts. It's based in perception. And there's always a fear of this perception can be wrong. So what do we do? Because our castle is based on that pile. And if everything that we structure the castle or the building with can be wrong, we are in a bad situation, aren't we? So fear is that. Fear is something that it's everywhere because we are not certain about the way that we deal with things in life. Envy, torment of the same conflict of insecurity. I so envy that guy because he has the best wife ever. Really? Have you tried? People are nice. People, when they come out of their shelves, people, when they come out of their homes, they're very nice. But is this princess sitting in front of me acting and behaving like a princess, a real princess or a frog? Or let me rephrase it. Is it a princess or a real person? A real person has flaws, just like your partner. But why envy that? Because you think that this person is so happy to have the other person on her side or his side that you start envying that situation. Why? Why can't you build the situation yourself with the person that are with you? It's easy to relate to external things. We've been taught to do that for so many centuries, for so many incarnations. Think about the church itself. If we are being incarnated in the last centuries and the Catholic Church was the main religion, well, we start learning that if we talk to the Father, if we talk to the priest, he will intercede in between me and God, so I don't need to talk to God. Because there's somebody in between that has more power than me, and we'll talk to him. And I'm good. I just talk to the priest. And I'm good. Well, you can do it yourself. There's no intermediary in between you and him. The same with fear. Don't put the fear in between you and what you want to do. Question the fear. Question, why am I envy about something? Because I don't have it? Do I really need it? Or is it something that I'm just fantasizing? That, oh, it would be so nice to have that. Have you ever... Let me ask you something. Who here never thought in winning $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $10 million in the lottery? Anybody can say, no, I never won it. You never won it? Never? So we have one. Great. And let me give you a perspective. That is a research that 80% of people that won the lottery in 7 years' time lost everything. And not just the money that they won. Everything. The money that they had, that they won, the money that they had, the family, the house, the cars, and their life. So, watch. Because it's so nice to fantasize. Put it in perspective. And maybe that is not the way it is. So why get envy about something that will not aggregate too much value to your life? Think about it. Use your brain. Hate, inability to understand and forgive. The word hate is really hard. It's really powerful. And when you hate somebody, mainly you are hating something in that person that you don't assume that you have in yourself. That's what we call the shadow effect in psychology. You have something that you don't assume that is bad, but when you see in somebody else's, you are the worst Jude ever. You hate that, and such and such. The other time that I was here, I talked about how to tolerate people. Well, tolerate is totally different than bear. If you say, I tolerate you, you're not saying that you support anybody. You're just saying, yeah, I tolerate you. Whatever. And tolerance is not that. Tolerance is totally different. So when you say that you hate somebody, you're probably hating the fact that you're seeing something in this person that you don't like in yourself. Another way to analyze, isn't it? There's so many ways to analyze our feelings. This is one. Check inside yourself if you don't have the same quality, quote unquote, and that's why you are hating so much that quality in your neighbor, in your friend. Resentment, absence of valuation method. Well, I'm talking about fear, and I'm talking relating to can cause a lot of problems to our body, in the physical body. But can you imagine jealousy, envy, hate, and resentment? What kind of damage that can create inside of you? Resentment, it's really like, it's not as hard, it's not as powerful as hate, but if you keep feeding it, that is a lot of bad energy that you put inside yourself. That is a lot of bad chemical reactions that are happening every time you rewrite the same story, relive the same story, and keep with the resentment over and over and over. So why live in that kind of situation if we can get out of jail just by thinking, what am I doing here? What do I have to do with these feelings? What I'm afraid of losing by not feeling that anymore, trying to recover from that feeling to something that is health. What is tying me to that kind of feelings? Fear for need, type of fears, deficiency, situations where the individual is located below the real possibilities. There are so many people that say, I cannot do this. I don't think I'm able to do this. I don't think I belong. I don't think I have this capability. Have you tried? Or you're just repeating something that maybe you didn't understand when you were young, and you create a habit of believing in that, and this habit just turned out to be a belief. Because that's the way it is. Every coach will tell you that motion creates emotion. Continual emotion creates a habit. Continual habit creates a belief. So if you don't understand, if you don't analyze, if you don't search for your thoughts, when you respond to something, you're going to create an emotion. This emotion, every time that comes to you over and over and over, it will become a habit. So you will respond the same way to that stimuli, per se, all the time, the same way until you get the habit. If the habit keeps going, you're going to have a belief. So that's why you say, I don't deserve, I don't worth it, I don't. Is there anything that you can tell yourself, that you can put in a table to prove to yourself that this is right? Probably not. It's just a perception. That you let you grow to a point that right now you believe in it. So it's a fear for need. It's a fear of your deficiency. It's a fear of not being enough to do the task. So you don't go and you don't try. And what happened? You create a new belief, which is an inner saboteur, as the psychologists used to say. Fear stimuli, beliefs that lead the individual to fear certain situations. That's so many times that we feel that something will happen just because, I don't know, it's raining and that's thunder, and this is bad luck. It's so many, in quote unquote again, sympathies. So many things that don't have any source of reality attached to that. So many beliefs, again, that doesn't come from nowhere, but you bought it, and it's inside of you. As a Brazilian person, I had a grandmother that was from Portugal. And every time it was raining, she would tell me, get out, don't stay in front of the mirror because you're going to see dead people. That's an old saying from them. And she bought it without even thinking about. And I could buy it as well. But, you know, for me it was silly. But maybe I bought some other things that I don't even know. Just because I was told in early age that, oh, this is the way it is, and I didn't question. So at this point, let's start questioning some things that are more irrational than rational. We just respond, we just react, we don't analyze. And maybe we can eliminate a lot of those fears. Imaginary fear, figment of people's imagination. Nobody has that, right? Especially the ones that stay at home for 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours around here. When I moved to U.S., I was down in Brazil. I had 2 jobs. I was teaching at a university in the morning and at night. I had 2 bands. So pretty much if you owe me money, you could stay in my home from, let's say, 7:30 a.m. until around 12:30 at night, and I'm never going to find you. Because the last place that I could go in the middle of my day or to the end of my day was my home. I was that busy. I got here, and it took me a while to get permission to work. So I start counting the blocks on the ceiling. You start getting crazy. Because you used to be active, and all of a sudden you have nothing to do. And that's the time when your imagination presents you some sceneries. And if you buy that, you're in trouble. You are in trouble. Because there's so many things that you can assume that are happening and are not happening. But thank God none of you has that. It's just me, right? Normally that's what we do, right? Like the ostrich. We are feeling fear. We put our faces in hole, dark, that we can see anything. And if you cannot see it, you are safe. But the whole body exposed. So that doesn't work. Agoraphobia. Agora, it's a Greek name for a place, for a block, per se. Social phobia, terrified of doing anything in public, fear of being judged and evaluated by others. People say that the worst fear that we have is to die. But, as a matter of fact, it is not. One of the worst fears that we have is this one. Can you come here? Yeah. Give a little bit of a speech. Like 5 minutes. No. You can do it. Why? Something that you know. No? You? Go. Ask me. No. I'm not going to cheat. One of the worst fears that we have is to speak in public. Why? because we don't know if people are gonna like us or not. If the topic is boring, although you study a lot, if your tone of voice is boring, if your presence is boring, if you're gonna be accepted by the crowd that is looking at you or not. So agoraphobia is really hard, because when you present yourself to public, then you have to dress up yourself with a mask. Which mask should I use? A nice, intense, powerful, weak, pussy, the cat with the big eyes from Shrek? Which one? None of them. But the thing is, if we don't know ourselves, then we don't know what to present. And if people are going to understand or not, or going to like us or not. And again, we default to the first fear. Not be liked, not be loved, not being enough. See how tricky it is. Everything goes back and forward. But by understanding that we have those fears, we can analyze them better. Afraid of our shadow, I just talked about the shadow effect. The sum of deficiencies of character we do not want to see. We assume that not seeing means not having, until we see that in somebody else. And then we really crucify this person. We really put him or her down, just because it's so bad to have that kind of feeling inside of you. Well, guess what? You have it yourself, and you don't assume. So another thing to analyze: why am I being so rude? Why am I being so angry? Why am I being so intense with somebody that is just presenting something that the way that they are? Instead of respecting that, instead of tolerating that, why am I being so intense? Maybe because this is something that we don't assume for ourselves. Another way to understand things, another way to reevaluate and repurpose our reaction, repurpose the emotion. Things ignored generate much more fear than the ones that we know. Things that we ignore generate much more fear than the ones that we know. Do you guys agree? Yeah? Like the fear of death. What's going to happen when we discarnate? We're going to be presented to a choir of angels, and the gates of heaven are going to open, and we're going to sit there and live happily ever, or the opposite, or none of the above. So this is something that, what's going to happen? Our experiences of suffering and pain in the spiritual world and the lack of clarity about the spiritual life are also causes of our fear of death. The clear idea that the future life gives us an unshakable faith in the future and completely changes the point. Spiritism comes to tell exactly what happened, exactly what you expect, exactly that when you close your eyes to the material world, your eyes open to your nation, your spiritual nation. We all come from the spiritual side. We're just here learning. It's a small journey, although it can last 100 years, but it's small compared to infinity. So when we understand this kind of information, it's easier to grasp the concept of death. Because how do you react if something comes to you in a Sunday after lunch, look at your family, everybody's happy, playing, and say, well, guys, let's take a minute and talk about that. Yeah, probably the silence says everything. They're going to think, well, he drank too much. Well, he's crazy. Well, what's happening to you? Want to talk about it? Are you sick? Nobody want to talk about that because it's something that we don't know. You know something else that we don't know? Ourselves. Do you know yourself? Do you know yourself? Do you know yourself? A lot? A lot? Do you know yourself? Do you know yourself? Do you know yourself? A lot. Do you know responses? Do you know what you're doing here? Do you know how you respond? Why you respond? Why you're causing the Third World War when somebody told you something? Mainly we don't. So guess what? Let's come back to the concept right here. Things ignored generate much more fear than the ones that we know. If we don't know ourselves well, what are we afraid of? Can somebody answer that? Ourselves. So first of all, we are afraid of ourselves because we don't know ourselves enough to be confident about our response. And if we don't know ourselves and we fear for how we're going to respond the next time, that is not a great way to keep going. So, let's study a little bit about ourselves. We were born and raised under the belief of the original sin. Adam slipped, and now we are paying. He did something wrong, and now we are all paying forever and ever for the sin of, let's put it this way, as we're talking about metaphors, because everybody knows that Adam and Eve are just a metaphor, but let's put it this way, because that's the way that we learn from our churches. We are sinners. Well, if we are in a planet that is a planet of proofs and tests, if you need to be tested, that's probably because you are not the master. You're not perfect and you're not right. You need to be tested to see if you get that right. So yeah, in this sense, sin in the old Jew or Hebrew is just missing the target. The word was misinterpreted since then. To sin is just to miss the target. Yeah, we miss the target a lot of times. That's why we're being tested. So yes, we are sinners. Not in the sense that they put, not in the heavy burden that they put over the word sinner. But yes, we miss the target so many times. Every day we miss the target. In one small thing, or two, or three. So in that sense, yes, we are sinners, but believe that we are paying for something that we didn't even know if happened. And if you think about it, I'm not going there because it's going to be the rest of the speech of just talking about that. But when you talk about that, come on, guys. Adam, Eve, two sons, one son killed the other son, there's nobody, there's just three people in the earth. The other one gets out because he was regretting to kill his brother, and all of a sudden he found a village coming out of where? There was just three. And then he found a village, and he married somebody, and he gets sons. There's no reason on that. So let's treat it as a metaphor. And as a metaphor, understand, we're not sinners. We're trying. We're trying hard as we can try. And in this sense, that's why we are incarnating in planet Earth. Because it's a trial planet. It's changing this polarity, but it's still a trial planet. So let's understand that. Let's move over that. The result of fear in our lives will be the loss of power to act and think with spontaneity. Because when you fear something, you change your response. You don't know if you say what you think, the response will be so powerful or so angry that you're going to feel more fear. So the only thing that we need to fear, it's our fear itself. Why am I afraid of that situation? Most of the time it's little things like, should I ask him if I can do this? Should I ask my boss if I can have a promotion? Should I ask my teacher if I can go to the restroom? Well, my father has a saying that most of the other guys in his generation had as well. The answer no, you already got. All you can have by asking is yes or maybe, because no is already there. If you don't ask, the no is in front of you. No, you're not going to do it because you didn't ask. So if you ask, you can get a maybe or you can get a yes. Or you can get the no, but the no you already have. So why fear? Why live in fear by asking something? By trying to do something that you do want and maybe you think that the other ones were not going to like it. It's a maybe. It's not certain. Start understanding your points. Start validating your points. Try to do it this way. If you get a no, okay. You just confirm. If you get a yes, wow, surprise, surprise. Maybe you were right. And if you get right many times, you got to start building self-confidence. And that's what you need to fight fear. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here's what belongs to you. Matthew 25:25. This is the parable of talents. Why Jesus was telling this parable? Was he talking about money, about gold? When he talked about talent, which was the old name of the money at that time? If you don't remember the parable, the owner of the farm was going out, called his 3 servers and say, you know what? I'm going to test you. I'm going to give you some talents, a.k.a. money, and you need to multiply these talents. When I come back, you're going to tell me what you did. He gave 3 to the first, 2 to the second, and 1 to the last. The other 2 went out and multiplied their talents. The one that got just 1 thought there was not enough. And he was afraid of losing it by trying to risk to use the talent to produce something else. So he buried on the ground and he gave back. Isn't that what we do all the time? If you don't believe that you have a single talent in your life, you are off the beat. Every one of us, you have a single talent that nobody does have. And if you don't show that to the world, nobody will. You have a single talent that nobody has. If you don't show it to the world, nobody will. You have a single talent that nobody has. If you don't show it to the world, nobody will. We all have a single talent that if you bury on the ground, nobody will see that. And that's the thing. That's the parable. Are we burying our talents because we are afraid of losing it? You don't lose whatever belongs to you, whatever was born with you. You always can multiply. But you have to be courageous. You have to use that for yourself. You have to believe in yourself. We have to believe in ourselves. Otherwise, our talents will be laying down on the ground, buried, waiting for the master to come back. You just give it back, say, hey, you gave me 1, I give you back 1. So what's the deal? What did you learn? What did we learn by doing that? That we can lose what we got if we never try? How to fight fear? Man, know thyself, and you are going to know the gods. This is on the Oracle of Delphos, ancient Greek. When you know yourself, you're not afraid anymore of yourself, of your reaction, of whatever you're going to produce with your talent. By knowing where you're coming from and what you can do a lot better. And that's what Spiritism tells in every single speech, in every single lecture. Know your inner self. Jump inside of you before you try to change people. Understand yourself. And then try to help the others. How can you give love to somebody if you don't love yourself? How can you give charity if you're not charitable with yourself? How can you give whatever good feelings if you don't have these feelings in your emotional bank? How can you give to somebody else? What are you giving? A blank check. If you give a check that doesn't have funds in real life, what happened? It bounced back, right? And when it bounced back, you had to pay fees, right? Think about emotional bank. And think about the fees that you pay because you gave something that you didn't have. And that's what happened to us. When we don't have this emotion, these feelings inside of us, you try to fake, and this doesn't work, doesn't last, because it will bounce back. And when it bounces back, the charge is not in money, but it's way worse, because it will increase our fear. It will increase our, next time we're not going to attempt that because we fail. Fail, my friends, is an acronym. Fail, it's first attempt in learning. That's how we think. We have to think about the word fail. First attempt in learning. Didn't work? Let's try it again. That's all we can do. If we don't go further, we never know where can we go. Up to what point can we push? Joana de Angelis, a mentor of Divaldo Franco, one of the biggest mediums in Brazil, said the antidote to fear is the information brought by Spiritism. Why? Because it informs you. Because it tells you what it is. Why this is happening. It's not the easiest way or the most pleasant way to understand. But it's the right way to understand because it tells you if that is happening, it's because of this. Check. Check and see. If you find this way, you have two ways. Keep doing what you do or change. It's about you. The certainty of reincarnation, the certainty that we have experimenting, practicing to do better. And the last 3 words of this sentence are the thing that we need to understand. We are experimenting and practicing for the outcome of doing better, not of doing the same and not of not doing it at all. We are practicing, we are experimenting to do better, to be better, to help people better. Always search for the good things. And we know deep inside of us what is good and what is not. And the earthly life is no more than a long day before the actual eternity of life of the Spirit. So, if we are, we are, but it's just a question, if we are, the power that moves this body, this shell, and all of a sudden we discarnate, what are we going to take with us to the spiritual world? What if somebody calls you? We have those information, some are metaphors and some are real, that when we discarnate, somebody will ask us about our good and wrongdoings, right? Somebody will have like a list of good things that you did and bad things that you did. So ask yourself right now, if I discarnate right now, is the list positive or negative? Am I doing good things to compensate the bad things that I do or that I did? Because the only things that we're going to take with us are virtues. Are the virtues that we develop in this life. What are the virtues that we are developing right now? And what are the virtues that fear is interfering for us to develop? Let's not leave fear in between us and our endless possibilities. André Luiz, another mentor, tells that the courageous support difficulties, overcoming them. They went and affront the dangers without waiting them. What that means? What is the right word? What is the right sentence? Watch and pray, or pray and watch? Watch and pray. Because if you don't watch, if you don't pay attention, what you going to pray for? If you're not vigilant, if you don't understand things, if you're not looking for it, what you going to pray for? And watch what you pray for, because you're going to have it. That's another thing. We must accept our own fears, admit that we have fears, and also admit that we all have fears. It's not just me. It's not just you. Everybody has fears. So we are in the same boat. We're not different from our neighbor. We all have fears. Admit that you do have fears and live better with that. Fear is normal when it's moderate. When it's excessive, it becomes a disease. It starts to harm our life. Spiritism said that the solution to fear is undoubtedly the exercise of faith that moves mountains. Again, faith in what? First in ourselves, in God and ourselves. Of course. Of course. If you don't believe in yourself, what you going to believe in? The torment imagination is responsible for our distorted vision around the reality that should be irrigated with new ideas and stimulating hopes. Fear lives more in the mind than in reality. Before worrying, ask yourself, what is there for me as a spirit? My friends, I'm going to leave you with that. But I want you to understand, fear lives in the mind. So it's something that we create that is not real. It's something that we change with our perception. Something is black and white, and all of a sudden we transform in something so different that we start fearing, we start having some different thoughts about that. So don't let that happen. And how come? Just ask yourself, what is that for me in this situation as a spirit? Not as a mother, not as a father, not as a worker, not as a speaker. What is that for me as a spirit? There's nothing for us to grow as a spirit. You have your answer, right? Thank you.